Well, I don't. Well, you're live. Are you live? I'm gonna move. I'll move here. Okay. Well, we will go ahead and get started. John, you want to go ahead and introduce everyone, and I'll try to figure out the Instagram. The Facebook Live. I'm not sure how many other ones you're live on. Well, you guys can go ahead and get started.
Welcome to our second Fireside Chat, and I'm lucky to have okay. Thank you. We're still getting some technical things ironed out here. What we're trying to do is do multimedia effort to broadcast our Fireside Chat live, and I'm lucky because we have Black Valley Park District Commissioner Mary Ann Cummings, who's also my neighbor, who lives on Lincoln Avenue, so about 8-10 blocks away. Yep. And has been part of our community and a number of different hats. You're wearing your okay, yeah. As a commissioner, we're going to talk about how we can like better think with the city of Aurora to community, partner with the Black Valley Park District, and things that you've accomplished as board is working there. So we're trying to have a lot more of these discussions about bringing different government non-government topics together. So anyways, welcome Mary Ann. And what we're going to do is take some questions from people. That we did this last week with a lot of fun. We got a lot of questions from the audience. So we're going to be reading those questions periodically, but why don't you just introduce yourself briefly? And you are running a second time. You're on the ballot this time to be uncontested. It appears so, yeah. I think I was the only one that had the requisite number of signatures. And a little bit more this time around. When I first ran for Park District Commissioner, then people had never elected Park District Commissioners. Before I was the first actually elected, they were always appointed by the various county boards. Now, that's a problem because if you look at the property tax, there are two lines in the property tax here in the city of Aurora. And that is taxation and telecommunications is pretty close in the budget. The reason why I ran was I had been involved with to run for public office, and thousands of people did. And I can't stress the importance of doing something like this. I was first elected in 2017, and I made a bunch of promises. And it's astounding that I was able to do that because when you're on this level of government, really local, your ability to get things done, your ability to change what's immediately around you is about as much as you can. For the neighborhoods around here, the resources weren't really accessible to a lot of the poorer neighborhoods. I mean, people know about the Vaughn Center that was built in 2002, and the Air Center that is east, and both of those are miles away from people in this neighborhood. In the meantime, the older places like the YMCA and the YWCA, which where most people live on the street, for instance, where I live around here, those disappeared. So we definitely entered the first of my life. The things that was an eyesore for years was the abandoned hospital, Poplar Hospital site. Now that has been a bit of contention for years, and various people have tried to deal with that. What the Fox Valley Park District decided to do before any of the deals with the investors were made with the district court, or at least part of that property to become a park. And we did that pretty much independent of all the other efforts In fact, I would credit the Foxborough Park District efforts with regard to pushing other efforts along. At one point, we had applied for a state grant, which we eventually got, and people were getting a little concerned. What happens if you get this grant, $300,000 on this, and the city hasn't come to an agreement with these guys? I said, well, that'll look bad for the city, won't it? And sometimes when things like this, when you're confronting people's, like public perception, look at them to move. Otherwise, if there's no outside impetus, you have a place like Copley Hospital City Manager companies. So it's having people that live in your neighborhood, that have your concerns, that really care about the people around you and the resources getting to those people makes a big difference, because if you're not at the table, it's not like people want to be mean or want to ignore you. It's just that everybody is under pressure. There's limited budgets, limited time, efforts. And if you're not at the table, if somebody representing you is not at the table, chances are you need to be help. So I can't emphasize enough. Park district boards, school boards, if you want, there's some excitement in your life. A lot of those boards, those are coming up. All of those, it's amazing how big effect you can have, and people are often grateful that somebody shows up and wants to do something. So, anyway,
you feel like you've had an impact.
Oh, yeah.
In the church for 4 years, you're getting ready to do another 4.
Mm-hmm.
What things do you want to accomplish? And more specifically, the city has parks. A lot of people don't put these things too often, but the city of Aurora has parks, and the Fireside Park District has parks, and more facilities, I think, than the city has. How do they work together? I have my own thoughts. I don't know some of yours.
Well, we've been pushing some of that around. I mean, it's been pretty clear that the city parks in recent years, those outside of the downtown area, have not been up to the standards of park district parks. So we've been working, our executive director has been working with the city, and in some cases the County Judge Committee. We've been trying to not duplicate efforts. It's been pretty much, I think we're pushing along a program where anything having to do with recreation or swing sets or things like that, Park District has the flower gardens, things like that, to be handled by the city. In the case of big projects, like the latest big project was the Blacktop Park, which is in the Blacktop School property. That was a joint venture between the city and Park District. So we have a lot of those. We're trying to look around, we took something like 186 properties in the Park District, and we're really trying to find places where, some of our properties, we don't really use it. One of the old properties we have is the old Montgomery Trail. The Park District does have a police department that is trying to find out.
How many people learn there?
Well, I think there are like 4 or 5 full-time people now. That's down from what it was. And our director is now trying to, and again, we're the Park District because we overlap with 4 counties and 3 cities and several townships, can take the lead in the integrating efforts between police departments. So I think eventually we will, because it is a little ridiculous that we've got 5 people and we're over 65 square miles. There's no way we can control. So we need to we need to evolve more into a model of forest management for national parks.
What makes it the city could do? And sometimes alcohol means that there's an incident, and that's when you might use the police.
Right.
So something the city could do is help augment the security force on some of those days where there's planned activities outdoors and stuff.
And there was always some ambiguity too, because there were some incidences at a park district park, and the police were called, and the rural police said to me, this is not a jurisdiction. And that's absurd because, there's 5 police officers within a 5 So we've been using our police technology can actually help in a sense of work. Well established. So, I think that a lot of that is
Yep. So Dan had one from last time I was sitting in that wasn't answered, and it says, "How do you lure new businesses into Aurora? And every politician says that they'll provide jobs. How will this be different? What approach will you take?"
Okay. So every politician, everybody running for mayor or alderman probably saying, yes, we will bring better paying jobs. The focus that I have is going to be on blue collar jobs. And the way that we do it is create a market for new products. So what I've been saying is that if we have a Department of Sustainability in Aurora, and that Department of Sustainability helps people find existing resources, whether they come from ComEd, from state, or from those and find homeowners who want to make energy efficiency improvements, who want to move to solar, find those people and then help navigate the process of getting those resources into that person's home or business to reduce the cost of it, reduce the heating and cooling costs. And so that's the benefit for the home or business owner. And then on the other side of the coin is the market to create jobs by bringing some of that money directly into our community. So that's my plan for bringing what I call green collar jobs here. And a lot of it, there's existing federal money out there for largely for low income people. And there's existing utility money available for everybody. And some state grant money that's available for places like our districts, places like schools, and we can help facilitate all that if we have a Department of Sustainability. So that's my focus is demand growth, is to create a demand by bringing more money to it, and then the create more and better paying jobs, because we don't want to just bring any jobs. Development that brings restaurants brings something that enhances the experience of those who are coming to Paramount, and that's good because people that are coming to Paramount will want to might want to go out and eat afterwards, so they're going to have that experience. But those jobs don't pay living wages a lot of the time. So what we're trying to do is bring stable living wage jobs to the world. That's your question.
I know that for my part, we partner with employs up to 800 people at a given time, and most of those jobs are quite seasonal. There's summertime jobs, there's when the sports are happening, all the summer programs are happening. The big issue when I first came on board was that our executive director was telling us about his efforts to exempt the health system from minimum wage jobs for these temporary employees. To be under the minimum wage law. And I said, well, absolutely not. And my fellow union person, my taxpayer was just adamant that if you work full time, you should get the minimum wage at least. And furthermore, if there's any downward pressure on wages, it comes from the top. And that's a very delicate issue. Because you do notice that salaries for people in local offices, they've been getting increases and cost of living raises where most of the people in our neighborhood haven't got a raise in 10 years. Yet our taxes keep going up. And that has been, and I have to give our executive director credit, because I think he's a very well-meaning person, but he also realizes that now the board is his employee. The way it works for most of these boards is that the evolution of our district is that we have one employee, and that is the executive director of Park District. And if you understand that, and if you don't mind being HR once in a while, you can have you can put a lot of good pressure to bear when things need to be done. So that's just all part of the social equity. Also, we need to staff the bike board. There's much better connected bike trails to go after communities and really those things have been dealt with, most notably the park, properly, but there's a whole bunch of other things that we are taking and need to look into. And, right now, which I could talk about in a minute, something that I didn't anticipate is that the park district would be integral to the local efforts to deal with COVID. So early in the summer, I took hard to get the park district to work with the local school districts to make all the facilities available for remote learning for people who could not have their kids in school, so that the schools themselves could remain closed. Now, I've been talking with my executive director. Our police chief is working with all of the cities and the counties, government agencies to help them better facilitate the distribution of vaccines as they come in. So things like that.
So places like Vaughan and Crystal Center, maybe, Phillips Park is the city facility, but places like Vaughan and Crystal might have new places where they're doing that vaccine.
And the Blackberry Farms. There's a lot of facilities in the park district that were being made available because of the limited ability to have recreational programs this past summer. They were used as remote learning centers and now as possible COVID vaccine distribution centers. But, it's when people are mindful of just how well the public assets are handled and used, I think there's better use comes of them for more people.
Are there any other questions from?
I don't know yet, John. Sorry, we're having mic issues and we're trying to fix
okay.
them, so I have not been able to follow that. Yes, I do think we have some other questions. Do you want to unmute Kate and see if she's got some there while I pull out this one?
Sorry, not any questions yet.
No worries.
Yeah. It's a Friday night, we're just hanging out here.
It is. Oh, I know what I wanted to say. Hey, we got more candles. Somebody had asked, there was a question about why don't I have a real fire? And this is the important issue facing Aurora taxpayers and voters. Why don't I have a real fire? I blocked off my chimney as a form of energy efficiency, so I don't heat my house with a fireplace. That's why we're using the candles. But we bought more candles locally at some downtown businesses.
Oh, that is awesome.
To support our downtown businesses, so we would have a bigger flame.
Just a little historical note from a person who also has a vintage house. None of the fireplaces around here were originally new fireplaces. They were usually oil burning places. They were mostly decorative. Fireplaces were considered an old-fashioned thing in the 1880s and the 1890s. Then there was a big, like a nostalgic push to have real fireplaces back in homes, about that time. So most of our chimneys aren't really designed to have fires in them, although people have done that. Perhaps my fireplace, if you looked at my fireplace at home, I've got a big surround but a tiny little place, and that was redone in the 1980s to safely have a small fire in them. Like if you try to have a nice roaring fireplace in that, you're probably going to burn your house down.
It's that's right. So I would have to add a metal chimney.
You would have to redo the chimney from the roof all the way down there.
Right. Metal chimney lighter. It does have this. It has two sections and sleeves, but there is a lot of debris built. We're talking about our chimney.
Let's regard this as a public service announcement to those of you with antique houses.
Yes. If you have an old house, don't necessarily walk in and light the fire.
Yeah.
It could just stay in here and choke people out, because this one has a lot of debris in it. So, other public service announcement. Aurora has some of the best water, but we also still have lead pipes. So this is another part of how we create jobs. I think somebody said is, to me, everybody should get their drinking water and potable water from a source that doesn't have lead. So that would be something that I would want to see at our administration. And I think there should be money out there, under the new administration. We'll wait and see, to do that in communities.
Well, I wanted to say this about government grants. That's the other thing, because I work for a small research company. Like, all we do is beg for money from the federal government, first order it seems. So I know about how to navigate through government grant process, and I really pushed. Not that we didn't have competency expertise, but I really pushed hard on the people in the park district to more aggressively go after federal and state grants. We did do a section of the connectivity of bike paths with a grant from the Monarch Butterfly Corridor project. And that's actually an international project, but we do have funds from the federal government. And that's basically to have areas planted with native plants for the butterflies to, and other pollinators to be attracted to. And bike paths are a great place for those. They're usually along near railroad ties or tracks or things like that, and you can just plant native plants along them. And these are the ones that the city of Aurora may not let you. They're the people who've been pressing to have native gardens, but
some people want native gardens, some people don't want them.
Yeah.
What about milkweed? Isn't that where the
that's the monarch is. That's one of their primary
caterpillars set up homes.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, we have a question for each of you, and then there's a question on Zoom from Helen. But this question is, if you had the power to change one law, what law would you change?
Does it have to be local law, or should it be?
The question doesn't specify, so I would assume you choose.
Okay. Maybe I can choose a local one, and you can choose one. A law.
Or a policy, just a law.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go with a policy. Something that we need to do in Aurora and everywhere is redefine the term resisting arrest. So this is something that the mayor and a police chief can do and retrain their police force to do, because right now, even before a person is arrested, they can be arrested for resisting arrest. So there's nothing that says they've been arrested, but then they can get hauled out of their car. And typically this is what happens when things escalate, and it's unclear what the term resisting arrest means. So I've talked to people who said, look, you can go limp, it's considered resisting arrest. You can tense up, and it's resisting arrest. If you don't get out of the car fast enough, it's resisting arrest. It's just somewhat of a, now look, to me resisting arrest is running, fighting back, taking an actual swing.
I got arrested as a graduate student.
So you've been arrested?
Yes, because I unfortunately had this beater car, and I couldn't get, when I was at Fermilab, and I was really unhappy having to get off-site housing, because that means I had to drive my beater car through kind of a nice neighborhood in Batavia. And every single night for a while, I was pulled over by the cops. Every single night. And one night, they wanted to search my car. And I said, do you have a warrant for that? Because I don't think you're allowed to. I was arrested for resisting arrest.
Really?
Now, of course, but I went to jail, and then, of course, I got one of the bigwigs over at Fermilab out of bed to get me out of jail. And, of course, nothing happened because, oh my God, she's a graduate student, and also...
You're a young scientist,
yeah.
Driving to and from Fermilab.
Yes.
You got pulled over because you got a beater car in Batavia,
right.
and now you have a criminal record. Well, this happens to a lot of minorities in our neighborhood.
I was trying to get more of a criminal record, but the Chicago cops would never arrest me when I got older, so... For protesting.
So that's a state law. If you want to see it change at the state level, contact your state lawmaker. But locally, we can change policies and better define what that term means. So we're not just locking up people and giving them a criminal record early on in life. It sounds like you wanted a criminal record, but a lot of people don't.
No, when I wanted a criminal record, I couldn't get one. Okay. I was trying to get arrested for all these anti-war protesters, but they have sort of a spidey sense about who they could. I had my lawyer, my daddy's law firm on speed dial, you know, so
Okay.
it's like they know who they. But the thing is that I did have that experience as a young person of, you know, what it's like to be a poor person or have the cops perceive that you're a poor person and just, they can just, you know, pull you over and harass you. Now, I think something that you've talked about before, John, is probably related to what we just discussed, was cash bail. I mean,
Okay,
that's,
so this is the law you would change.
I would absolutely change cash bail. I think that is the single biggest unfair, I mean, if you are arrested or in jail, then the only reason to keep you in jail should be if you're an imminent danger to the society or a
Yeah.
flight risk, and that's it. It should absolutely have no bearing on your checking account, and I think that if there is one enormous source of injustice in the society, it's that, because poor person's in jail.
Yeah.
How are they going to pay their bills? They gotta work.
How would they pay their defense fee or
Yeah,
their defense fee?
who's going to take care of their kids? I mean, it's just you know, it's not just the person. I mean, this is the kind of thing that just rips through whole communities.
So the other, here's another one, non-criminal justice reform, but campaign finance reform at all levels of government. We can do it here in City Hall. We're not taking money from people to do business with City Hall. I assume, have you ever, wait, I'm gonna ask this question of you. It's very corrupt pay-to-play system in Washington, in Springfield, and in the city of Aurora. It exists everywhere, where those people who can afford to write a $10,000 check, sometimes it's only $1,000, sometimes it's $25,000. They can write a check and then they get preferential treatment, they get the contracts, they get their permits passed quicker, they get sweetheart deals to buy up property from Copley Hospital, just saying.
Yeah.
Where I read a couple of politically connected people who donated to the right person, the right mayor, get a contract rehabbing that, and then find government entities like the school board that I was on and the park district to come in and be part of that effort. But that's another big one that I want to change. Anyway, you had, has anybody ever attempted to bribe you, or has there been any pay-to-play that you can see?
Well, not me directly, but you know, we're still dealing with the Nicor gas situation, and they need a park district property to do the cleanup from. And we're gonna make them pay for that. And they've been in, I think it was kind of considered years ago that the city let Nicor gas off way too easily. And so the Nicor gas people were inviting my executive director out to lunch, but he came up to me and said, well, I'm gonna be using your name. I said, not in vain. He goes, well, I'm using you to go with these guys because they want to settle quickly, and he told them, well, we've got this Fermilab scientist on the board. She wants to go over the environmental reports herself, and so, in other words, somebody's looking. You know, it's like there's.
So you played the bad cop.
I played the bad cop. I'm basically, and sometimes when you can turn to an elected board with no financial interests.
Right.
And even if the people involved do kind of have ongoing relationships with all these people, they can use you as saying, hey, I'm sorry, it's not up to me. And it literally isn't up to him.
Yeah.
It is up to the board. So, yeah, we're going to get that settled. That's the other big thing we're going to.
Next question.
Yeah, so Helen has a question in Zoom, and then we have one on Facebook.
Okay, so I need to go look here. I see some chat questions.
Kate, you would just unmute Kate, I think, or Kate
I'm gonna
unmutes.
have to.
She can.
Can you go ahead and unmute and ask your question?
You're still muted. You're still muted, Helen. And I see Alfredo raising his hand. You're still muted.
My technical difficulties.
Okay, there's Helen.
Oh, now you got me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know. Technical difficulties. So, John, I know you were you're born in Liberia, lived there for the first 12 years of your life. I was wondering if you would relate. What was it like when your parents decided it was too dangerous to live there? How did it feel? How did you move? How did you readjust? How did you adjust to living in the States for the first time ever?
Okay, so I was 12 years old when we left, and it was definitely part of what I would describe as an evacuation. U.S. embassies have in place evacuation procedures for U.S. citizens who are living abroad. We lived in Liberia, and I remember we lived 3 doors down from the vice president, and I remember them, the people who were attempting a coup coming with M16s and hauling the family out, the vice president's family out at gunpoint, and that is when my parents decided it was time for us to leave. My youngest brother, someone had brought to our family because my mother was pretty much the village nurse, and his mother died in childbirth, and so we wanted to adopt him. And my parents effectively bribed their way through the adoption process and to the embassy during a coup and got him on a plane. They said, if you leave today, you can leave today. So my mother and my brother left, and then 3 days later, my father took me and my other 2 brothers with, so the rest of us all left the country. So that was May of 1986. And it was culture shock to come back to the United States. We're a very consumer-driven culture, and that was very strange to me. The things were not like that in Liberia. In general, there was a greater value for everybody, and I grew up largely in a village, and there was a real community sense of looking after each other. Now, that doesn't mean people were giving things away. Everybody was expected to contribute. Everybody was expected to help plant the rice farms. Everybody was expected to, the men went hunting. Women were expected to, pound the rice and palm butter, and men were expected to climb to the top of the palm tree and get palm nuts. And some risked their lives, and some lost their lives, actually. So, anyway, it's a very different culture, moving from community to individualism and what I would describe as a very sort of competitive culture that we have here in the United States. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what it was like.
Okay.
Thanks.
Allie Brown says, thanks so much for doing this. What is your stance on ranked choice voting, and do you think it has any place in local politics?
So I guess we have a form of ranked choice voting. If the way it works, these city elections are run a little differently, where if there are 5 candidates, then there's a February primary, and the 2 top vote getters move on. So it's not quite ranked choice voting, but so ranked choice voting is when you get to vote for one person, and then you get a second choice. And so it's not quite like that, but there is, if you have 5 candidates, there's...
So do you support ranked choice voting?
Yes, I mean, we could move to a system like that. It might require some change in state law. So it's not going to be something that I can change from City Hall. It would require a change in state law as to how those elections are run.
Mary Ann, do you want to weigh in at all on that?
I think ranked choice voting is a fantastic idea. It certainly would get rid of both parties' excuses for not voting for third-party candidates who might share your values for them, because there's no way. It gets rid of the spoiler effect. So I think it's a great idea.
But to be clear, we can't really.
But from a local thing, and I think it's less. I think particularly in these very, very local races, I think partisanship is not. The parties are not as big an issue as they would be at the more federal level. So.
Okay, and Gabriel Bradford says, John Ferrer, I have a couple of questions for you. What's your commitment to youth, and what are some ways that you would like to make Aurora a better place for youth to grow and thrive in?
So I think it's definitely, a couple ideas have come out of these chats. I'm going to share one of them. One of the things that we have, and this is actually a great question for you because we're talking about how can the Fox Valley Park District potentially partner with the city or the city partner with other entities in the city. So one is I do believe that the budget cuts to youth services should be restored. And I think that when we have programs for kids to participate in after school where they can get positive mentorship, that those kids are going to be more likely to succeed if they have a place to go that is fun, a place where there's adult supervision, a place where there's opportunities for physical education as well as potential help with school, music, art. We've talked to somebody who's involved with Culture Stock here in Aurora as a arts and theater kind of program. If these opportunities are available for youth, I think that they are less likely to fall into gang activity, less likely to hang out with their friends and try legal drugs, I guess they are now, or illegal drugs, or do things that might give them a criminal record in their youth. Not in a protesting sort of way that you were pursuing a criminal record, but you're breaking the law. So that's my answer to that. I think the city's role then is to adequately fund those. And I think the city's role is to partner with our schools, the park district, the township, and the nonprofits who want to do this work in our community.
Oh, one of the wildly popular programs through this past year with the park district has been the theater. The theater program. They managed to set up, completely revamp the program so people could do online and remote type of dramatic classes and dramas. And then the parents, because they were sitting around with the kids every day at 11 o'clock, the park district had something for the kids every day, and many parents said it saved their families during COVID. When COVID passes, they want to expand this program. But, just having a theater program, so people, especially with the schools here that have been severely cutting drama, art, and music, having this additional part of your life, not only are you learning to be in plays or to play music or do art, you've got a whole nother community or a whole nother set of connections with your community. And
a lot of this is caused by Common Core.
Yeah.
The focus on English, math, and science, and grades, which are all things, you need those things in life. But taking the fun stuff out of school makes it harder learning. So if the schools aren't going to provide that, this is a place where the community can step in.
And by the way, it's pretty clear that having even people who are not going to be musicians, having a musical background at all helps academically. Having an art background helps academically.
You're a gifted artist.
I would say that the reason that I could transition to science relatively late in the academic career was that I did art in high school.
Huh.
Problem solving. Looking at things differently.
Okay, so you are both have been elected officials. What is the most essential part of being a politician?
I'll let you go first.
Oh, I don't know what it would be essential, but you have to like getting yelled at sometimes, I think. I mean, I was going door to door and people getting signatures all masked up and looking, but it was actually kind of pleased me that people were pissed off and yelling at me. And I liked that, people were still cared enough to be pissed off at a local politician. And I find out that when I would stand there and listen, almost always, I would stand and listen, and then people would just kind of calm down and want to talk some more. I think you gotta really, to be an effective politician, you just gotta care enough to hear people out.
And you have to have thick skin.
Oh,
I would say number one is ethics. I think we're at a low point in American political politics, and people want ethical behavior. This is actually one issue that I see unites Republicans and Democrats, they are all sick and tired of the broken system that works for the wealthy few who can afford to buy access. And they want to see government that works for everybody. They don't want to see government that just works for a few elitists.
Okay, Lewis has a question. As a union carpenter, do you feel people in the trades are open to the idea of a green future? Often folks have an erroneous belief that a Green New Deal might eliminate jobs. How would you reassure people that they have a stake in this new future?
Well, that's what we're trying to do here in Aurora, is to build a strong, solid economy and create green-collar jobs, so people are no longer afraid that if we have these green jobs, or if we have an environmentally friendly whatever, but especially energy efficiency and alternative energy, that we can create jobs and replace the fossil fuel industry jobs, that actually there's going to be more money, because there's going to be an advent of new technologies. There's going to be new HVAC companies, there's going to be new window companies, new insulation companies, and new technologies that are going to come online. So an example of a new technology that comes with the green building movement is they figured out how to take glass, recycled glass, heat it up and inject it with insulation, and they then break that up and use that as basically, they call it foam glass, and use it for rocks and the foundation in the building. So this is a totally new technology, and anytime you explore this new world, you're going to see new growth in industry and more jobs. So I tell other union carpenters, I feel that's my role to tell them that there's going to be jobs and explain it to them, and they start to see that. But we've actually got to demonstrate it somewhere. So that is a big piece of why I'm running for mayor in Aurora, is to demonstrate to people and show them that we can do this. And I believe that it's going to be great.
Oh yeah, I think people don't really understand, even activists don't understand the scale of effort it's going to take to move us off of fossil fuels.
There's scientists.
Yeah, and just the complete restructuring of our entire infrastructure, the energy transmission lines, storage, everything, all of our homes. That's going to be, when you think about all the human effort it took to build the current structure, from the 1800s on, we have to redo all of it. I mean, there was still, in this 20th century, I found 19th century knob and tube. It was still live in my house. So, that kind of thing, that it's just, and it's going to be local. I mean, these are the jobs, it's going to be involving a lot of jobs that you can't possibly outsource.
Correct.
So.
Okay, Tyler here has a question.
So, there's so many things to ask you, John, but what do you think with what you did for the school board with the busing, bringing busing for those kids and raising up the grades for those kids by 5% or what it was? What else do you want to do that strikes to be one of the best besides the youth centers and stuff like that, or creating a safe space for kids where they can enjoy themselves? Is there anything else you can do?
So first I want to be very clear, I don't take 100% credit for getting buses in East Aurora. That was a group effort, team effort, and even a candidate who is not yet elected, Dan Barrero, is the person who's pushing for it as a candidate. So I like to make sure that we give credit where it's due. It is true that I was one of the first 3 board members to reflect the views of high school principals that wanted buses, and we did see graduation rates go up, not just because of busing, but also because we had put in place a superintendent with a 5-year contract who could carry out some strategic goals. Your second question is, what can we do that impacts kids? The number one thing I think that affects academic performance in District 131, 129, and 204 is household income. And you can see it, that in the more affluent areas, there's a parent who can stay home. Parents get off work at 3 o'clock, 3:30, they're home with their kids to go to baseball practice. There's involvement where in the poor neighborhoods where I live, that parent might get off their first job and go to a second job and not see their kid until late at night. So there's no heavy parental involvement. So to me, poverty is the number one issue. Living wages are an issue. Better paying jobs are the issue that are going to affect our schools to where we see better academic performance, more opportunities in life. And until we have those living wage jobs and better jobs, we need the sort of the support network and systems that we talked about with augmenting a parent being home with a place for kids to go.
Marianne, what about the parks?
Well, I think one of the things that I've been pushing, and you were talking about people getting contracts with the city, one of the things that our executive director did want to do, and we independent boards help them to do, is to insource more of the services. So now, for instance, we were doing an outside contracting company to handle the 2 water parks. Now, that was an issue this year, they were all closed. But it was always galling me that in the middle of August, I'm going down the bike path, and one of the parks are closed, because they had to close because people leave for school in the middle of August and if you had regular full-time employees of the park district who were running these, at least the swim programs and things like that, they could keep these places open. I suggested that because the schools begin in the third week of August, which I think is inhuman, but since they are doing it, and we've had a real problem over the years with kids not learning how to swim because the older places have disappeared, that for 2 weeks in the beginning of the school year, that's part of the PE program, is that you have swim classes during the afternoons and into early evening. So things like that, we can also extend things like for schools that don't have drama departments that, I've been pushing my executive director to work with the schools. There are schools that are underserved in the arts and drama, and mostly in low-income areas. So going forward, I'm just going to be pushing harder on all these kind of things. But we still have what I consider to be a lot of underutilized facilities and capabilities even within the park district. And I'm going to be a little more aggressive.
Okay. Good.
So I have another question. There's an image of Aurora in other towns like Naperville and even closer towards the city and things like that that are quite negative, gangs, drugs, and things like that. John, what do you plan on doing? Obviously, we've been talking about helping the youth, so that's one way. Is there a way to maybe help create a better policing force to help get kids comfortable with being able to communicate with officers, or create a community space where they feel more comfortable to be able to stop this image and start creating a better image for all of Aurora, for all of the people here?
So we're talking about image now. Let me tell you what I won't do. I will not be hiring a PR firm to tell people everything's okay when it's not okay. I think we need to address the root causes: poverty, the wealth gap, income insecurity, the fact that people don't have stable, safe neighborhoods. I think we need to actually change that. So I've talked a little bit in this, and you'll keep hearing me talk about the importance of bringing living wage jobs to change their household income. And I think that that's going to have another effect, right? That if there's more money here in our neighborhoods, that people will invest in home ownership, and they're going to work to improve their house, whether it's making it energy efficient or just cosmetic improvements, because there's more pride in home ownership. They're going to have more disposable income to spend at our local small businesses to maintain that aspect of our economy, and some of them are going to become small business owners. So that's what I see, is if there's more money coming in and better paying jobs, it starts to change everything. And we don't need to change our image. We need to address the root problem. So that's how I'm looking at it.
Awesome.
I know that past administrations, we've had a PR firm. I'm sure that there's some PR effort. They've called this the second Aurora second to none, which I think is better. And there has been investments in youth programs that have cleaned up some of the gang violence that Aurora historically has. But I also think we need to address some of those root causes.
Okay, we have less than 10 minutes left. We want to remind everyone that John will be doing this every other Friday. We'll have another special guest in 2 weeks. We have 2 questions here. The first is, and this is a question for both of you, what is the worst advice someone has given you?
The worst advice. I swim in a sea of bad advice, and I usually don't listen to it. You know. I think the worst advice. I know that people were back when a lot of us thought we could actually get tenure-track jobs who were working at Fermilab, even after they canceled the big superconducting super collider in Texas. People were coming to me and saying things like, you know, you gotta see what they're doing, and you gotta play down what you want to do and play up what they want to do. And I gave that about 2 minutes thought, and I thought, you know, getting a tenure job, that's a gold standard, but it also can be, as somebody says, like a bad marriage, like a bad group marriage without the sex. That would be the good part of it in that case. But it's like, if you know, like, if and so I was very, I was just basically unabashed and saying, hey, I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm a spokesperson on this experiment, and I did not. Now, I don't think that it either helped or hurt getting a job, because, you know, it was very hard to get a job, and most of these were, you know, they already knew who they got hired. But if you're independent and you know, make it known what you want, if you lie about what you want to do and you get yourself in a situation, you're going to be miserable. People are going to be miserable. I mean, you're going to try to adapt to a situation that you're. So anyway, my bottom line is be very straightforward about what you want to do. Sometimes just, you know, being adamant about it, you'll get it, which is kind of something that politicians or activists rather are. I don't know why we've just become so shy of asking for what we really want.
I think for me, the worst advice that I've heard in this campaign is people have said, well, you're going to have to be like Richard. You're going to have to take the money from those special interest groups, and if you want to beat him, that's what you got to do, is be like him and sell them the world. Don't be honest. Tell them everything they want to hear. And I think it goes against every gut instinct. We can't clean up City Hall like that. And if that's the case, why don't they just keep Richard?
Yeah.
So I'm offering people a change in ethical government and a government that works for everybody, and see us be an empowered city that's moving in a different direction for decades.
Do you find that people just too readily accept the current reality as the immutable reality?
I think a lot of people don't know how things actually work. They know the system doesn't work for them, but they don't necessarily know why.
But many people accommodate to it, so
But
they
this
advise
person-
you to be realistic.
This person knew that it was broken and said it's okay. So
Okay, the last question I have here is, what do you do differently than most people?
that's a good question. What do I do differently than most people? I suppose it's not most people, but I'm very frugal in German, and I like to reuse things, find ways to take it, just in remodeling this house, and I find old things that someone else has discarded and find a way to make those things useful. I don't think everybody in our society does that. We're very much a buy it now and throw away kind of society, but that's one of the things that I do. I think other people find it abnormal that I do it. So
Of course, I think I do most things like most people, like most of us, but I think more than anybody I know, I put myself in uncomfortable and sometimes nonsensical situations. In other words, I step outside my comfort zone because I think partially because on some level I know what a bump on the log I could be if I was not challenged. And so I always go, I forged a Viking belt axe this year just because I never knew how to blacksmith before, so I did it. I think that, I was very much aware, even in high school, how, my God, I have no skill set. Like, you grow up in suburbia and you don't know how to do anything. So one of my first jobs when I dropped out of college was to get a job at a machine shop in the physics department, and that's how I got into physics. So I think I do kind of nonsensical kind of things that no one would do because they don't make any sense, and I end up in interesting situations, So.
All right, for the last 2 minutes, if you could each just remind us of your names, what you're running for, any way that we might be able to contact you on social media or any other plugs that you want to give.
Okay. Well, I'm Mary Ann Cummings. I'm running again for Park District Commissioner in the 2nd District of the Aurora Park District. My old website, which is going to change pretty soon, is maryanncummings.com, and you can see one of the headers is Fox Valley Park District. So.
And it's an uncontested race, though, right? But
It's
you still want to get people out to vote on April 6th.
And as a matter of fact, I'm going to use my website to more generally promote progressive candidates.
Oh, great. So, my name is John Lash, and I'm running for mayor in Aurora, Illinois. This is my fireplace, and I want you to vote for me.
On what day?
On April 6th.
Yeah.
So we want to get some candidates in here who are running in a February 23rd primary.
February 23rd.
So there's going to be some races here in Aurora that are February 23rd primary. My election, April 6th. Your election, April 6th.
Mm-hmm.
Early voting starts February 25th. So right after the February 23rd primary, we're up and running on February 25th for this exciting race to change the mayor of Aurora and make Aurora a beacon of hope for our nation, because I think the events the other day highlighted that we are a nation still divided, and we need to be a nation united. We need to do our part here in Aurora.
Okay, you can join us on January 22nd at 7 p.m. for the next Fireside Chat, and follow along on social media at any platform, John for Aurora. Thank you very much, and have a good night.